These are trying times for all of us, and the stress of COVID, in addition to all the current strife in our country, puts us all on edge, including the students. Sometimes it's easy to let our emotions get the best of us, but we have to remember that our behavior is an example for our students. This module will focus on some simple thoughts and strategies that we can use to self-regulate and self-manage our emotions. For a person to seriously consider self-regulation strategies doesn't mean that they have some sort of hair trigger or impulsive disorder. Absolutely everyone sometimes feels emotionally stressed, and as we've said in these trying times, it's good to have some strategies in mind and some things to relay to your students. We're going to talk through some basic principles of self-regulation, and we'll also consider some video vignettes on this topic. What are the signals you recognize in yourself that says you have been triggered? What does it mean to say that people can regulate or self-manage themselves?
I might have to take a pause, and it's usually that I can't form a coherent thought, that I was on a train and going somewhere teaching, and then it's like I ran into the wall. So I have to sometimes even shut my eyes and count and tell people don't talk to me. We're all going to be silent for a minute because I'm going to regroup. Or I, in the classroom, have had to pull in the tag team and say somebody's got to take over. But when there is nobody else, then that's what I find that I have to do. That we got to shut it all down. We're all going to reset. When I was in the classroom, I had a student that I would literally make her spin, come back at me a little different, and let's pretend like we're starting all over. So physically, let's do this. So I think you're coming back at me differently, and guess what? I'm going to come at you differently as well. So having to definitely step back and take that pause.
My body will kind of snap out of where I was into a different persona. Like I'll be nice and calm and something will happen and my body will just go like, what? And I have to catch myself when my body does that, and I have to use self-talk and talk to myself and say, what's going on? What do I need to do? Do I need to stop and pause? There have been times that I've done that also where I've had to say to the person, I can't really talk to you right now because I won't say what I want to say, so I'm going to take a short break and then I'll come and get you when I can talk to you the way I want to and say what I need to say.
For me, I know that I've reached that point. I get sarcastic. And I can tell, like, oh wow, this is not going to resolve this problem. But that's when I've gone too far, because normally I'm not a yeller. I'm a talker. I just don't yell. I don't yell at my personal kids. I don't yell at kids at school. It's just not me. So if I reach yelling, then I need to step back. And if I reach real sarcasm or real counter-aggression, I know, like, whoa, whoa, I need to step back. I do, and for me, that is either I have to get someone else with me, or it is a lot of self-talk. But a lot of my self-talk is something I learned very early on, and it's always that, what would you say to this child if their parent was standing right behind them? Or what would I want someone to say to my child if they were doing this, what would I want them to do? And so I always try to picture that in my mind, like, okay, wait. Or even if another coworker was standing in the room, would I want them to hear me say this? Because if not, then I shouldn't be saying it. So, but yes, I'm guilty of at points when I reach that, oh my gosh, that counter-aggression is coming, and it's oh, do you? Is that what you're going to do? Like, I have to be like, whoa, nope.
What does it mean to say that people can regulate or self-manage themselves? This seems like something that every person does. First, self-regulation simply means that we have the ability to be in touch with our feelings and control our emotional responses. Obviously, this is something that most of us easily do over the vast majority of our lives. But under stress, some basic considerations may be helpful in promoting our self-regulation. Let's start off with some basic keys to self-regulation. The indicator behaviors for a person in control of his or her emotional responses. The first major indicator of self-regulation is the ability to be patient. Frustrations can build up and cause us to lose our patience, to demand change immediately. But it's important to understand that impatience typically exacerbates rather alleviates the problem. Patience doesn't mean we must suffer incessantly without action. It means we understand that solving problems in an often slower but more effective manner will pay larger dividends in terms of alleviating stressful situations. Maybe the best indicator of patience is the ability to remain calm under emotionally trying circumstances. Remember that students look to us for how to react under stressful circumstances. Maybe think of calmness as an ability to be seen from the outside as being peaceful and composed. Showing calm does not indicate a lack of concern. We can take a situation seriously and address it while maintaining composure. If we lose our calm, so will the students. When we think about addressing stressful events or student escalation, it's okay that we are not all trained counselors. Nobody expects that we would be able to solve every problem that confronts us. But we do need to have the ability to handle a situation in a manner that keeps it from further escalating. Find your own personal safe zone, the place where you are comfortable and able to deal with a situation in a calm manner. For those with advanced training, their safe zone may include actual counseling of students and talking through escalation. For most of us, our safe zone may simply entail being a calming voice of reason and a model for other students. In any case, the big idea is to keep things from getting worse before further help can be arranged to address the issues. If you are interested in receiving more advanced training in safe crisis management, contact your administrator. In a related sense, your personal safe zone is a set of actions that do not allow you to be sucked into the circumstances. We must avoid arguments. There's no reason to attempt to change anyone's mind when their emotions are out of control. Rather, our focus is on following through with whatever behavior plans are in place and implementing de-escalation strategies while waiting assistance. Because we are adults and used to thinking critically and logically, it's often difficult to refrain from arguing with the illogic of students whose emotions are running high. But we have to remember that the time to have these conversations with students is when they are calm. Once there is an escalation, we must stay focused on de-escalation. Remember that no one will think less of us if we need to tap out or give the situation over to another adult. The calmer we are going into the situation, the easier it is to step back and let someone else work with the problem. On the other hand, if we are upset, arguing, and escalating ourselves, moving on is more likely to be perceived as though we're too frustrated to help. The message we want to send is that a new adult taking the lead is simply another person who cares and would like to help. Clearly, not all students respond in a similar manner to all adults, for a variety of reasons. The fact that any one of us is not that person for a given student is no reason for shame. There's likely a different student who would respond best to you. Finally, if there's one thing that every teacher should know, it is that students' issues, while often in your face and frustrating, are part of their own trauma and problems. We can't take these things personally, even when they definitely feel personal. It might feel like students do these things purposefully to get under our skin. But logically, if this is the case, letting it get under our skin plays right into their hands. Further, we have to consider not just the individual student we might be addressing. All the other students are watching how we react to these students. The more we are able to model calm, the better able we will be to de-escalate the situation and show students that being calm is a workable strategy. Research has shown 60% of the time when the kids are out of control, the staff's reactions to the incident actually caused escalation. You've probably run into one of those students who it feels like for some reason has decided his or her mission in life is to make your life miserable. A good mindset for us when dealing with these students is to consider it a puzzle that needs solving. Taking it personally and allowing our emotions to take over will never help to solve the puzzle. Now that we have the basics down, let's talk some more about general recommendations for responding to student misbehaviors, emotional outbursts, and escalation. As we discuss each, keep in mind that these are general recommendations for responding in the face of typical student emotion and escalation. Oftentimes, individualized behavior plans may call for actions that contradict one or more of these recommendations. It's important to realize that behavior plans have been developed specifically for unique individual students, and following the plan represents our best chance for success. The following are specific student challenges and general discussions of effective responses. We all know the student who, when confronted with a direction or consequence, wants to make a deal. As a general rule, we don't want to bargain with a student as it reinforces the belief that such deals are always possible and worth haggling for. Once a direction or consequence has been given, the teacher needs to ask the student to follow through. If the student wants to bargain, the teacher's response should be that a deal can be discussed only after the student has complied with that direction that was already given. Watch how this teacher responds to a student who is constantly seeking a deal during virtual learning.
All right, Alex, now we've had this conversation before, but you're still not getting your journaling done. I need you to get those done. It's a really big part of your grade, and it also helps you develop your writing skills.
Yeah, but I really wanted to draw. If I can get 2 drawings done, then I'll be able to journal.
No, you've already missed 4 already. I need you to get those done before you draw.
Okay, just 1 drawing, and then I'll clean my room for the camera.
Now, I'd be happy to give you time to draw, but you have to finish your journals first.
Then I can draw.
Yes, once you get done with your journaling and everything's done, then you take that time to draw.
Notice that the teacher did not argue with the student or attempt to get in on the wheeling and dealing. He simply stuck to the message and helped the student understand that following through with the original request must occur prior to any bargaining. As teachers, we've all had the student who has a response for everything we say and always has to have the last word. While it feels awkward and sometimes like we're giving up, it's always the best policy to let the student have the last word if possible. There's an air of confidence in the adult that does not allow a student to bait him or her into further escalation. For students that absolutely must have the last word, every time we respond, we simply set them up to escalate. State the direction or decision directly and leave it. Watch how this teacher lets a student have the last word during virtual learning.
All right, guys, all right. Next, I would like each of you to pull out a piece of paper and write down 3 simple sentences describing the important things that you've learned from today's speaker.
Why do we have to do this?
Well, I'm asking everybody to write 3 sentences down just so that we could talk about them later.
Well, I was here so I could talk about it, not so I could write about it.
I understand that, Amanda, but just right now, I'm asking for everyone to write down 3 simple sentences.
What if I write 3 words?
3 sentences, please.
I'm thinking about them, but I don't want to write them.
All right, class, this should only take about 2 minutes total, and then we'll discuss.
I'm only writing 1.
Well, Alan, it looks like you're writing a little bit more than 3. I appreciate that.
Oh no, they're just very long sentences.
I can remember without writing.
All right, guys, 1.5 minutes left.
This student seemed to have a comeback for everything the teacher had to say. But notice that the teacher realized this and stopped responding. Every time the teacher responds provides an opportunity for the student to have another comeback. And this teacher diffused this by simply letting the student have the last word. Note that this does not have to be the end of the conversation. The teacher may wish to speak with the student privately at a different time, and a consequence may be warranted. But by allowing the student to have the last word now, the teacher controls when this conversation will occur and is able to maintain an instructional focus. While all students may violate a rule now and then, let's talk about the student who will blatantly break rules while you're looking right at them. These students can be especially frustrating as they seem to be challenging us and our authority. But remember that the more intense our response, the more we are signaling that they have some sort of control over our emotions. As adults, we do not want to give students that satisfaction. When confronted with a blatant rule violation, the teacher should provide a quick comment. Call the student out by name and say, perhaps, "What do you think?" This is helpful to indicate awareness. Next, move to make sure all other students are situated before returning to speak more directly to the student. Be sure to make a clear statement about the directions, choices, and consequences. Watch how this teacher handles a student blatantly flouting the rules during virtual learning.
All right, guys. Thanks everybody for keeping your mics muted when you're not talking. I like to see everybody's face, but the noise in the back can be a little distracting.
Hey Coleman, you got any smokes?
Hey Zeb, come on, man. Can you please just keep your mic muted, please?
What? I still can't hear you because I think we're both muted or something.
Guys, please. Let's mute our microphones right here. This is the last piece that we're doing. Just write one sentence that you would think of when writing a test.
What?
And go ahead and write that down, please.
Huh? I still can't hear you.
Zeb, we're almost done here, but I would like to speak with you right after class, okay? Right after we're done.
I seriously can't hear you, man.
All right, guys, I need everyone to make sure you get that question down and put it in the chat, and we'll be done here.
Obviously, the student was purposefully flouting the teacher's directions in an attempt to disrupt instruction. But the teacher did not respond with any threats or ultimatums. The teacher made a very clear restatement of the directions without escalating emotions. When the student continued to blatantly disregard the direction, the teacher got the other students moving and then simply said that the conversation would need to occur privately and remove the student. It is important to note that this type of removal is a last resort. But when a student refuses to respond and interrupts instruction, a more private conversation is in order. Because it's not possible to do this in a quick sidebar while in virtual learning, logging the student out of the class so that a private conversation could be conducted by phone is a logical step. Anyone who works with children and youth is used to hearing the why questions. But let's talk about the student who uses this repetitively to distract from assigned work or directions. Why questions are not something we want to extinguish. We want students to ask why. But when the question is simply the student's strategy to belabor a point or disagreement, we must disengage. We don't want to default to "because I said so," but at some point we just tell the student it's an interesting question and offer to meet later for a longer discussion during their free time. This is a logical strategy because some students don't really want the discussion. They just want to waste time. Watch how this teacher handles a barrage of why questions during virtual learning.
Okay, you all are team 1, and your job is to review the last chapter and pull out the important locations so that others can build their pieces for those places.
Why do we need to do a review?
So that groups 2 and 3 can layer their pieces on top and we'll have a full model.
Why do we need a model? Can't we just talk about it?
Well, having something to look at will help us talk about it.
Why?
Because we can point to a place and talk about all the important activities.
I don't see why we need to review this.
You need to find the important locations.
Why do we have to do it as a team?
Those are some good questions, Brooks. And I don't have the time to answer them all right now because we need to get this done. But if you'd like to schedule a time later, I'd be happy to talk with you more and answer all of your questions.
It's possible that this student had a genuine curiosity about the nature of the activity. And if so, the teacher provided an opportunity for a richer discussion at another time. More likely, the student's why questions were a veiled attempt to drag out the instructions and argue rather than get started on work. But the teacher's response was not argumentative and provided the student with a respectful answer. Bottom line, the teacher was able to diffuse the situation and get the students moving on their project. There's a difference between the student who has trouble following directions and those that outright refuse to comply. The main thing is to not get into a power struggle. Yes, you will. No, you won't. Remain calm and simply lay out the options. Your position is you have the student's best interest at heart and want to help him or her make a good decision. But in the end, the student will have to make the choice and accept the consequences for that choice. Watch how this teacher addresses a student that refuses to comply during virtual learning.
Brandon, can you please turn your camera so that I can see you? I saw you talking with everyone earlier, so I know that you can do that.
Yep, sorry. Can you see me now?
No, I mean, I would like to see your face, please.
Okay, no, sure thing.
Thank you. It's nice to see you. Oh, now you're gone again. Please bring the camera back to let me see you.
Yep, sorry, one sec. Let me just... All right, can you see me now?
Brandon, you have a choice. You can either show your face to me while we're talking, or I can call home and we can talk about this further. I need you to make the choice. Seems to me it would be more simple just to turn your camera, but it's up to you.
All right, okay. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Brandon. So let's move on. We were talking about Newton's first law, so Newton's second law. Does anyone know what the concepts are?
The teacher noted the student's prior conversation and was confident that the student was able to engage. In the end, either the student complies or they don't. In either case, it is a student choice. If the student refuses to comply, the teacher will simply say, "Okay, your choice is for us to talk about this later with your parents." And that's the end of the issue for the time being. If the student does comply, the teacher simply says, "Thanks, good choice," and move on. More sophisticated students find ways to play the system, and a common version of this is playing one adult against another. For some students, avoiding directions or expectations can become a game for them. In such cases, it's simply the argument they want. In any case, the teacher should follow through with the direction or consequence and indicate to the student an intention to follow up with any other adults at a later time. Watch how this teacher handles a student attempting to play one adult against another during virtual learning.
Madison, we've had this discussion before. When we're doing group work, you need to be an active team member, listening and contributing.
Well, that's not what Mr. Warner said. He said I can just listen in.
Well, Mr. Warner may have a different task in mind. I need you to participate.
So you think Mr. Warner's wrong? Well, I'm going to let him know, and you guys need to figure this out.
Madison, in my class, these are directions for everyone. I'd be happy to talk further with you and Mr. Warner if you think that'd be helpful, but it won't change what I'm asking you and the rest of my class to do.
Whatever. You can't decide.
Let me know if you'd like to schedule a time for us to meet with Mr. Warner, but for right now, you need to be an active participant.
Notice that the teacher did not engage in the argument about whether the request was appropriate, only that it was the request. Further, the teacher did not bite on the student's attempt to foster a disagreement between two adults. The response was that it could be discussed later, but it did not affect the current direction. If the student were to continue with this behavior, the teacher would offer a choice between compliance and a consequence. Another strategy sometimes used by more sophisticated students is the attempt to find inconsistencies or loopholes in the rules and use them as justification for misbehavior. This is sometimes referred to as jailhouse lawyering, and like playing staff against one another, the object is often to engage us in an argument. When students attempt to cite loopholes, we should simply restate the rules as clearly as possible and then provide the student with a choice. Attempting to actually sit down and codify all your expectations for an individual student is counterproductive and not worth the time and effort. Watch how this teacher responds to a student attempting to argue loopholes into the rules during virtual learning.
All right, when you get this completely finished, we'll stop and have some social sharing time.
Wait, shouldn't we be having social sharing time before and then do this?
No, our schedule today has social sharing after this.
No, wait, we should be doing social sharing now.
This is the best way to fit everything into our schedule, and it was on our agenda today.
Yeah, but when we're in the classroom, we have social sharing early. We should be doing the same thing in the same schedule. This isn't fair.
Oliver, right now the direction is to get the assignment finished. Then we'll do social sharing.
But if we did that earlier in the room, you said we did the same schedule, then we should be doing it now.
Again, Oliver, your direction right now is to get this assignment finished. Please get started. You really don't want to fall behind and miss anything fun later.
You're not following your own rules.
Oliver, you have a choice. You can either get started on this assignment now, or you can work on it later when we are all doing social sharing. It's totally up to you, so what's your choice?
Fine.
This student may or may not have actually believed that the rules were being violated in some way. But once the teacher reiterated the direction, the student needed to show compliance. The student was not going to be satisfied with any outcome other than getting their way. The teacher explained why, provided a clear redirection, and gave the student a choice. If appropriate, the teacher could pull the student aside later and further describe why the schedule is set in the way that it is. But once a direction has been given and explained, there should not be any extended discussions or arguments. Now that we've had a chance to hear about self-regulation strategies and self-regulated responses to student misbehavior, here's a brief quiz to help you think about what you've learned.